Hey everyone, in this video I'm going to compile 4 awesome DIY soldering tips using everyday items that many people consider very ordinary and cheap. Things like spark plugs, AA batteries, fishing nets, and a few other things. It might seem unrelated at first glance, right? But that's precisely what makes these tips interesting and useful. If you found this video helpful, don't forget to leave a like, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications so you don't miss similar helpful tips in future videos. First, I will connect the threaded end of the spark plug to the threaded body of the spark plug using a piece of wire. This short-circuiting creates a direct electrical path between the 2 points, allowing current to flow more easily. This is a very simple method, requiring no complex components, yet it is remarkably effective in many situations. With just a short piece of wire, we can complete the connection quickly, economically, and easily using readily available materials. This is a simple electrical connector, consisting of a conductive rod and 2 small bolts detached from an electrical terminal block. I will utilize this detail as an intermediary to connect the soldering iron tip to the threaded end of the spark plug. Next, I used a pre-cut piece of PVC pipe to make a handle for the soldering iron. For assembly, I drilled a hole in the pipe of the appropriate size, allowing the threaded part of the spark plug to be easily inserted and secured. The type of wire I'm using to connect the key parts together is insulated on the outside, with a core made up of many small copper strands tightly twisted together. This design makes the wire flexible and easy to work with, while still maintaining good conductivity. It also helps create a more secure connection, since the stranded core can grip and adapt better when attached to different components. With the remaining end of this wire, I'll attach an alligator clip. This makes it much easier to connect and disconnect during use, especially when testing or adjusting the setup. It also provides a firm grip on contact points, helping keep the connection stable without needing to hold it by hand. In all 4 of today's tutorials, I've only used AA batteries, extracting the carbon core inside to make a soldering tip. I chose this material because carbon is a good conductor of electricity and can withstand high temperatures without melting like many common metals. When an electric current passes through, the carbon core converts electrical energy into heat energy at the point of contact, creating a concentrated heat source for soldering. Furthermore, the carbon core in AA batteries is compact, uniformly shaped, and easy to process and install into various homemade soldering irons. Thanks to these characteristics, it's a readily available, low-cost material suitable for applications in DIY experiments and projects involving electric heating. After I finish making my homemade soldering iron, I will attach it to the pre-prepared position. But that's not all. I'll also make a tool to connect the negative terminal of the power source to the workpiece. This part is very simple, consisting only of a piece of wire and 2 alligator clips. One end will be connected to the power source, and the other end will clamp onto the workpiece, creating a complete electrical circuit. With its compact design and easy assembly, this tool is not only convenient to use but also allows for quick connection and disconnection during operation. This is a small battery, serving as the primary power source for this project. With its compact design and ability to provide a stable current, it's ideal for powering small-scale DIY experiments and models. We can clearly see an electric arc forming, which is a good sign that the setup is working. But to really understand how effective it is, we need to test it in practice. Let's use it to join some small metal pieces together and see whether the bond holds firmly without damaging the parts. So now, take a close look at the hands-on demonstration. And so, after a few simple assembly steps and initial tests, the first homemade soldering iron worked successfully. Interestingly, most of the parts were repurposed from very familiar and readily available items, yet when combined they created a surprisingly effective tool. This is precisely what makes DIY projects so appealing, as seemingly ordinary items can offer surprisingly useful applications. However, that's just the first tip. Now let's move on to the second tip. The first tip for the second project starts with a safety pin, a small and familiar item that almost everyone has seen. It may sound unbelievable, but this seemingly ordinary item can be repurposed as part of a recycled soldering iron. Let's see how a simple safety pin can be incorporated into this interesting DIY project. Here we have a bolt and a nut. Simple parts, but they play an important role in building the heating head of this DIY soldering iron. Even though they're small, they're incredibly common and easy to find. That's exactly why I'm using them here. They help hold everything together securely while keeping the design practical and easy to replicate. In this design, the inner casing of an AA battery is repurposed as the handle for the homemade soldering iron. Meanwhile, the safety pin acts as a connector between the soldering tip and the handle. After assembly, the safety pin is securely fixed inside the battery casing, ensuring a more stable connection and a compact structure. Baking soda plays an important role in securing the safety pin to the handle when combined with super glue. When these two materials are used together, they create a fast-setting, hardened bond that helps lock the parts firmly in place. It's a simple trick, but very effective, especially when you need a quick and solid connection without complicated tools. To keep the wire from getting in the way while I'm working, I'll use electrical tape to secure part of it along the handle. This helps keep everything neat and easier to manage during use. At the same time, it adds an extra layer of insulation, reducing the risk of electric shock if my hand comes into direct contact with the handle. There's a very common reason why a light bulb that was working fine suddenly goes out, and it usually comes down to a failed LED chip inside. These bulbs are made up of multiple small LED chips connected in series, so when just one chip burns out or loses connection, it interrupts the entire circuit, stopping the current from flowing. While we're in the testing phase, I'll show you a simple way to fix it. By applying solder to bridge across the faulty LED chip, we can restore the electrical path, allowing current to flow again and bringing the bulb back to life. We'll start right away with the first step, which is opening up the LED bulb to inspect what's inside. The goal here is to locate exactly which LED chip has failed so we can deal with it properly. Once we identify the damaged spot, the repair process becomes much more straightforward. Concluding the final experiment of tip number 2, the homemade soldering iron was successfully used to repair an LED light bulb. The results demonstrated the practical effectiveness of this design, so I don't need to elaborate further. Now let's move on to tip number 3. Tip number 3 involves a slightly innovative approach, utilizing paper clips. These are commonly used for clipping papers and securing various objects in daily life. With their strong clamping force and sturdy metal construction, they can be used for many purposes beyond their original function. This time I'll try transforming them into part of a homemade soldering iron. The first step is to remove one side of the clip so it can serve as the connecting part between the tip and the handle of the homemade soldering iron. Next, I prepared a 10 cm piece of PVC pipe to use as the handle. You can adjust the length to fit your own hand so it feels comfortable to hold. And to fix the clip inside the PVC pipe, doing it the usual way is tricky. It's not secure and can easily pop out. That's why we need a little trick to solve this small problem. I'll use pliers to squeeze the spring part of the clip, making it narrower. Doing this makes assembly much easier. After connecting one end of the wire to the clip, I'll use a paper towel to secure the clip inside the PVC pipe. Wrapping it tightly ensures the clip stays firmly in place and prevents it from moving around. Once it's snug, I'll add a bit of liquid glue to the paper towel to lock everything securely. This is the type of liquid glue I mentioned earlier. It's a clear, fast-drying adhesive that works well for small DIY projects like this. I'm using it here because it seeps into the paper towel and the PVC, creating a strong bond that keeps the clip firmly in place. It's simple, effective, and perfect for holding lightweight components together. This is a motorcycle valve stem, one of the components used to build the tip of the homemade soldering iron. It helps hold the soldering tip firmly in place. To secure the motorcycle valve stem firmly to the clip, it's a good idea to use 2 metal washers as well. They help keep everything tight and stable. It's not surprising that tip number 3 was a success, starting with a seemingly ordinary paperclip. Even such a simple item, when used correctly, can produce quite good results in this experiment. And now, let's move on to the final tip to see what interesting things await us. Are you surprised that our beginnings start with a sieve, a very familiar item in everyone's kitchen? Perhaps it needs no introduction as everyone has seen and used it before. And now I'll get started. I started thinking that maybe this electric mosquito racket could be reused as the handle for a homemade welding machine. Just imagine that for a moment. It's quite a unique idea, isn't it? With this set of bolts, nuts, and 2 metal washers, it becomes very convenient to connect the mosquito racket body to the homemade welding tip. To keep the wire from getting in the way while working, I'll secure part of it along the handle of the racket using a plastic zip tie. The success of the final tip is the best answer, as all the previous tips have proven successful. Through 4 different experiments, each tip started with very familiar items but was transformed into useful applications in practice. This shows that with a little creativity and proper utilization, seemingly discarded items can still create significant value. And that's all the 4 tips for making a tin soldering iron in today's video.